So we're just still trying to wrap our heads around this whole thing that happened in Orlando over the weekend. The two incidents that happened in Orlando over the weekend.
Yeah, it was just a horrific weekend in
but
Florida.
Of course, Saturday night into Sunday, everybody waking up yesterday and hearing about this rampage that happened at one of the gay nightclubs down there in Orlando. And by the way, they just revised the death toll on this.
49?
49, and then plus the gunman is 50.
Okay.
So just to clarify that just a little bit, 49 victims. They've identified all of the victims but one with this.
Oh, just awful.
With
Makes
this
my
shooting.
stomach turn.
One of our friends, Scott Medeiros, who grew up right here in Fairhaven and went to New Bedford High School.
And he was on the radio here with us for quite some time.
Did the night show here at Fun 107 for a little bit. Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
So you have a personal connection to one of the victims from this weekend's shooting. Which victim did you know?
Well, originally, I thought he was just injured. I know a few friends down there, and I know that he used to frequent that club because when him and I used to date, that's where he would take me all the time. And
so you've been to the Pulse nightclub?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness.
And I just remember the last time we went there, we argued about it because I didn't want to go. And I'd flown in to visit, and that was, the last thing I wanted to do. So I remember just fighting over it. So as a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, him and I were texting, catching up, and he was like, "You should come down and visit." I was like, "Yeah, I would love that." I haven't seen him in probably at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So, we were starting the planning phases of me coming down to visit. So, it's weird because he actually came up and visited us, and I showed him Fun 107 when I used to work there.
Oh, wow. So. I'm so sorry about that.
So you found out within the past, 24 hours or so that he was one of the victims who died?
Initially, a good friend of his said he wasn't there with him, but he said, I think he's injured and in the hospital, but I'm not sure yet. They're not releasing any information. And then several hours later, just out of curiosity, I went on the site that they had said they had put up, the list of victims. And they only had released 4 of the names at the time because that's the families that they had reached out to and confirmed. And on the top of the list was his name.
Oh.
Wow. That is...
just awful.
Can't imagine that. So sorry to hear about that. I really am.
It hasn't, yesterday it was hard to process it because, him and I usually bicker about music because we're both very passionate about it. And that was kind of the last text message we had. I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. And it was just, that's the first thing I did was look at it.
Yeah.
So tell us about this Pulse nightclub, Scott. You'd been in there. What is it like?
They say it's like one of the clubs, one of the most popular clubs in Orlando.
Well, I mean, I guess it's relative. I know that there are some clubs in Providence and whatnot. And it doesn't really, equate to any of the gay clubs there, but it's trendy. And that night was like the biggest night of the week. I remember going in, and I think there's 2 floors, or at least there's like a patio area. And Latin night was the night, and so I can't imagine that if it was packed like I remember it being, that there was any place you could move, quickly. That is, and I just know there's a bar along the back wall, and most people align the back wall, and the dance floor is like right in front of it. So I mean, it's just an open space in that area, especially when you first walk in. So, I mean, that's all I really recall about that club.
They said there were about 300 people?
About 300 people there. So, if you do the math, about 1/3 of them were impacted with a bullet in some way.
Right.
And I can't fathom how he got in, only, because there's 2 kind of doors. You have to walk through one, and then you have to pay and get ID'd, and then you have to walk through another to get to like the main dance floor. But once you get through that second door, you're right there. The dance floor and the bar, like straight ahead.
It's all right there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know Boston had their Pride Parade on Saturday.
They did.
Obviously before this tragedy. You are now doing radio down in Virginia. It's in Richmond, right?
Yeah, I'm in Richmond, but DC Pride was this past weekend.
There was
and
this
they had
past.
their-
But
and
has
they
the
had their
Richmond
pride-
one happened yet?
No, ours isn't until September.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you. I mean, would this give you pause about going to something like that in the future? Like, especially, I guess there are going to be more because this is the month. Isn't this Gay Pride Month?
Yes.
Would this give you pause going to? Because I know in Rhode Island they are. I think it's this coming weekend.
It is, yes.
Would you be nervous about going to something like that at this time?
I think I'm nervous about going anywhere. I mean, yesterday I had to go and do an event at a rooftop club, and I was just thinking, well, if it happened on the rooftop of a club, this could be, it could happen anywhere. It's not like just a gay club, I felt. And, as a matter of fact, we are in the planning stages of our Pride here in Richmond, and we're thinking of, ways to better protect and whatnot, but we're not going to stop.
Right.
And I'm not going to not go.
Right.
But yesterday, my first thought was, how am I going to, go to a rooftop club right now? Because it's possible to happen anywhere.
Right.
So it made me nervous and made me think about where I'd go in general.
We're talking to Scott Medeiros. He did nights here at Fun 107 a few years back. What, maybe 5-10 years ago, Scott?
Yeah, probably closer to 10 years ago.
And, you grew up in New Bedford and Fairhaven and found out yesterday that one of his
Very
friends
dear friend of his, yes.
was one of the victims in that nightclub shooting down in Orlando. Are there any plans for a memorial for your friend yet, or?
Well, yesterday, as you can imagine, I was just trying to get answers and asking what I could do. I would have literally gotten on a plane that moment and helped if if they asked me or told me that I could.
Scott, what is his name?
His name is Eddie.
Eddie.
I call him Eddie, but his full name is Edward Sotomayor Jr.
Did he have family, living nearby?
Well, his sister is probably his closest family member, but his mom and dad are in his life as well, and they were several hours away, so they're there.
Oh.
And then he had a couple of friends. I only knew two of his best friends and his sister. And so I reached out to all of them, via Facebook, and I had the number of one, and I asked, is there anything I can do? And they said it's really too early. Aside, everything that the Orlando community is doing is satisfying what they need right now.
And they're just numb. Can you imagine? I mean, you can't imagine getting that news. They're just numb.
Numb.
Yeah, and all of them, are processing as well. And I told them, hey, I'm processing just all the memories that I have. And, I understand, and whatever you need, please call me, and I'll be down there and as quick as I can. But the need was immediate for blood and everything, and that was getting taken care of right locally in the Orlando community. So today, hopefully, I'll hear from them on further things that they might need that we can help them with. Of course, here in my city, we've reached out to all the local LGBTQ community related businesses and asked them to come together, and we're doing a vigil this week. So right now, that's all we've kind of stepped up and done.
One thing I found disappointing yesterday as I was going through my Facebook feed was instantly everybody politicizing this. Both sides were guilty of this, and it really turned my stomach. I'm like, can we get the bodies out of the nightclub before we start politicizing this?
Right.
I was wondering what you thought about that, Scott.
My heart aches for those that go right to that, because it's not, of course this gentleman shouldn't have had firearms to begin with, but they're not listening to what's actually happening and what people are saying in Orlando. There are several radio stations down there and community leaders that are seeing what the community can do and come together, and it's all about love. Right now, stop. I know this is a political year, but right now, everyone on Facebook is really extremely passionate about, this gun law. And it's like, I personally, I don't want a gun in anyone's hand, but that's my own opinion. And this wouldn't have happened, of course, if there weren't, any guns. But there are, and it's now about the people, and so many people, and seeing as it's so close to me, I just want, myself to be able to process this and not have to read someone's opinion about gun laws.
The way I look at this is when we do this as a country, when we immediately knee-jerk and take it to a political stance after a tragedy like this, we're doing exactly what they want us to do. We need to all be Americans right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this pits American versus American when we take these stances like this on Facebook, and I hate it. And I
agree. I
we
think
need to just be Americans right now and
have
protect
feelings
our
and
own.
process those feelings. You can't do that when you jump right to the political side.
What it most likely reminds me, or most closely reminds me of, is when you're in school and you torment, a classmate. It's like you're just, we're just getting angered and poked and tormented, and we're going to do it right back. And you're sitting in your classroom and you have a classmate who's constantly tormenting you, and you're, two wrongs don't make a right. And you're absolutely right. I think as Americans, we've always taken this high road, and we've been proud of who we are. That's all we need to do is continue to be Americans and stop feeding into any of this. There's so much hatred out there. It makes me nervous.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you taking the time out and calling the show this morning on a very difficult morning for you personally as you lose one of your friends in that Orlando nightclub over the weekend. And, we really do appreciate you calling in this morning.
Thank you guys for even talking about the subject matter. It's been a subject matter that is obviously not the most favorite for anybody to talk about, especially.
I said this morning, I said, I hate shows like this. Like, the last thing in the world I want to talk about on Fun
It's
107
death and dying
is
and
this.
awful,
but,
right.
it's just, unfortunately, what we're living in right now.
But so sorry, Scott, for your loss.
Thank you.